You walk through the front door after a few days away, and before you've even set your bag down, they're there. Not just greeting you, attaching to you. They follow you to the kitchen. They sit outside the bathroom door. They press against your legs when you stop moving, and the moment you lower yourself onto the couch, they are on top of you, or as physically close as they can get. You think it's sweet. You assume it'll pass by tomorrow. But 2 days later, they're still doing it, tracking you from across the room with an expression that doesn't quite read as simple happiness. There's something more complicated in it, something quieter and heavier. And if you've ever paused in that moment and wondered what's actually happening inside them, this video is the answer. Most dog owners reach for the same explanation immediately, and honestly, it makes sense. Your dog missed you. They're thrilled you're back. The clinginess is just love in overdrive. Affection so large it spills out into following you everywhere and refusing to let you leave their line of sight. You've probably described it to someone exactly like this. She's just obsessed with me since I got back. You meant it warmly, and there's nothing wrong with that reading. It isn't entirely untrue, but it is a surface reading. And what lies beneath it is both more complex and, when you understand it, considerably more moving. Because here's what behavioral research actually tells us about that post-return clinginess. It isn't primarily driven by joy. It's driven by something much closer to anxiety. The reunion is real. The relief is genuine. But the behavior that follows, the pressing, the tracking, the refusal to let distance exist between you, isn't celebratory behavior. It's regulatory behavior. Your dog isn't staying close because they're overjoyed. They're staying close because something in their threat detection system was activated during your absence, and it is not yet fully powered down. The dog pressed against your leg in that moment isn't expressing love as much as they are managing fear. And understanding why requires going one layer deeper. In the 1990s, researchers at the University of Rome began applying attachment theory, originally developed to understand human-infant caregiver bonds, to the relationship between dogs and their owners. What they found was remarkable. Dogs don't just bond with their humans in a general social sense. They form what psychologists classify as a primary attachment, the same type of deep, specific bond that an infant forms with a parent. When that bond is temporarily broken, when you leave, it triggers a measurable stress response. Cortisol levels rise. Vocalization increases. Exploratory behavior drops. The dog isn't simply bored or lonely. They are, in a neurological sense, experiencing something that functions like grief-adjacent alarm. And critically, this response scales with the depth of the bond. The more attached your dog is to you specifically, the more significantly your absence registers as a disruption to their sense of safety. Which means the clinginess, when you sit with it, becomes something extraordinary. Your dog built an entire internal sense of stability around your presence. Not because you trained them to, not because you asked, but because over hundreds of ordinary days, mornings, walks, evenings on the couch, he became their reference point, the fixed coordinate around which their experience of the world was organized. When you left, that coordinate disappeared. The world didn't end for them, but its structure became unreliable. And when you returned, the pressing close, the following, the watching, that's your dog in the process of rebuilding their internal map. They're not being dramatic. They're being precise. You are back. And I am not letting that fact out of my sight. Now let's talk about what's happening at the neurochemical level, because this is where it gets genuinely fascinating. When you walk through that door, your dog's brain triggers a release of oxytocin and dopamine, the bonding and reward hormones. That part matches the joy narrative. But cortisol, the stress hormone that was elevated during your absence, doesn't drop instantly. Research from the University of Vienna's Clever Dog Lab has found that the canine stress system can remain partially activated for hours, and in some cases even days, after a significant separation, particularly in dogs with strong primary attachments. So the clinginess, in neurochemical terms, is the overlap period. The reward system is saying, "You're back." The threat system is still saying, "Don't let this happen again." Both signals are running simultaneously. The behavior you see, the Velcro dog, the shadow follows you room to room, reflects both systems at once. It's not confusion. It's your dog responding accurately to two competing biological truths. And those two truths have been millions of years in the making. Dogs didn't evolve as solitary hunters. They evolved in proximity to human social groups over thousands of generations, as animals whose survival was functionally tied to the stability of their pack. Separation from that group wasn't merely uncomfortable in the ancestral context, it was dangerous. A dog separated from the group had reduced access to food, shelter, and protection from predators. The neurological response to sudden absence, heightened vigilance, proximity seeking, threat readiness, was adaptive. It kept dogs close to the people they depended on. That circuitry is what's running in your dog when you return from a business trip or a vacation. The modern context has changed entirely. The wiring has not. But here's something most people don't expect, and it changes the picture significantly. The duration of your absence matters far less to your dog than its predictability. Research into canine time perception and stress response, including work from the Hungarian ethology labs at EOTBOS Laurent University, suggests that an unpredictable 2-hour absence can produce more anxiety than a routine 8-hour workday. Your dog is not simply measuring how long you were gone. They are measuring how well that absence matched their internal model of your behavior. If you left without your usual pattern, if you stayed longer than they've learned to anticipate, or returned through a different door at an unexpected time, the disruption runs deeper, regardless of the actual hours elapsed. Post-return clinginess is often less about duration and more about uncertainty. The absence that confused them is the one that lingers, and here is where it gets counterintuitive. Most owners, faced with a clingy, anxious dog, respond with effusive reunions, big greetings, lengthy reassurance, matching the dog's energy with their own. It feels like comfort, but behavioral research, including studies reviewed in the Applied Animal Behavior Science Journal, has found that highly emotional reunions can actually extend the very anxiety that produced the clinginess. What happens is this: the dog learns that your departures and returns are high-intensity emotional events. That framing amplifies the underlying stress response rather than soothing it. The most effective reunion behavior, according to the research, is calm acknowledgement, genuine warmth, but without escalation. The dog needs to learn that your return is reliable, not dramatic, ordinary, not momentous. The goal is to lower the signal value of the event, not to celebrate it. So what do you do with this understanding in practical terms? You shift how you interpret the behavior, not just how you manage it. Notice whether the clinginess peaks immediately on return and fades within hours. That's normal recalibration. Or whether it persists across multiple days, following your every movement even well after you've been home. That's a signal about the depth of disruption, and in persistent cases, worth discussing with a veterinary behaviorist. Notice whether your dog can eventually settle into their own space while you're in the room, or whether proximity feels like a compulsion they can't step away from. The behavior is information. It's your dog's clearest communication about how much structural weight they place on your presence while you were gone. So the next time you come home and find your dog attached to your side for the second or third day in a row, pressing against you, tracking you, watching you with that quiet, unreadable expression, try to hold what you now know. They are not being clingy in the dismissive sense of that word. They are doing something genuinely extraordinary. They built a life, organized around your presence, and they are confirming with their whole body that the foundation is still there. You didn't know you had become someone's entire sense of safety. You may not have chosen it consciously, but your dog made that decision quietly, over ordinary time, and the clinginess after your return is just the moment when that decision becomes visible. It runs deeper than affection. It runs deeper than habit. It is, in the most biological sense of the word, love. Tell me in the comments, how long does your dog's clinginess last after you come back? Does it change based on how long you were gone, or how predictably you left? And if you want to go one level deeper, if your dog fears losing you this profoundly, what is actually happening inside their mind during the hours you're away? Are they waiting the entire time? Or does something else happen? That's the next video. And the answer is not what most people expect.